participants to introduce themselves. But maybe in the interest of time, we just go straight to a little bit of a background of Straight Talk, and then proceed to listen to two of the alumni to talk about their experiences on Straight Talk. Straight Talk is an international nonpartisan dialogue movement that seeks to bring together emerging civil society leaders from different sides of the cross-strait divide for the purpose of fostering a new generation of leadership for cross-strait peacemaking. It started in 2005 at Brown University, Rhode Island. That was the year of the anti-secession law. Some of you who study cross-strait relations may know. And I'm going to just share a little bit of the visuals, not too much, so that you have an intuitive sense of what we have been doing. Okay. So this is Johnny Lin, a 19-year-old undergraduate student at Brown University, whose determination made it possible to get this dialogue movement called Straight Talk started. And based on Johnny's determination, Straight Talk has 3 points for a mission statement. Number one is to identify and attract promising emerging civil society leaders from each one of the different sides of the cross-strait divide. Number two is to connect those people through transformative, in-depth conflict resolution dialogue. Number three is to welcome those dialogue participants into an alumni network. So you see the two pyramids next to each other. It can be 3 or 4 pyramids, and each pyramid represents a society from which the participants come. And we started at something called track 2.5 level. Track 1 being government to government, track 3 being grassroots to grassroots, track 2 being middle level in our formulation of multi-track. We started with track 2.5. At this point in a 20-year history of cross-strait relations that we engage in, we are moving a little closer toward track 2 or track 1.5 even. And within each one of the 40 to 50 hour process of the dialogue, civil society delegates from different sides of the Taiwan Strait would enter a dialogue process. It says 20 to 40 hours, but the version of the dialogue you experience in Okinawa will be more of a 40 to 45 hours. And it says interactive conflict resolution. This is a well-tested dialogue process that brings together individual citizens, not government officials, individual citizens from different sides of the conflict divide, who jointly analyze the nature and sources of the conflict, jointly come up with potential resolution options, develop action plans, and finally, and quite importantly, build relationships that enable those individuals to launch themselves into the societies from which they come and take action for peacemaking. The version of cross-strait dialogue we do in Okinawa has something called a consensus proposal. That is to say, all the participants from the 4 sides, that is mainland China, Taiwan, United States, and Japan, would discuss potential responses to the cross-strait challenge, come up with a consensus proposal with a view toward disseminating the consensus proposal widely. And then, importantly, we build an alumni network. We currently already have 1,200 alumni and counting. Why do we have so many people? Because Straight Talk, that started humbly in 2005, grew in different parts of the world. So here is, in a sense, the Asia Pacific spread of Strait Talk chapters. Some of the chapters are no longer functioning. For example, the Hong Kong chapter, which we closed in 2020 because of the the distinct security challenges, political challenges you may be aware of. Taipei chapter, University of Tokyo, Tokyo chapter, which is the basis of the Okinawa dialogue we are holding. We used to have several years of Berkeley dialogues. Brown University Providence was the originating place, and then GW dialogue. What's missing from this map is Alberta, Canada. We established the Canadian chapter. And the dialogue itself is important, but what the alumni do is quite important. Alumni work in different places such as government, public sector, private sector, academia, research, nonprofit advocacy, media, student going to graduate school, among other places. Showing this map as a background, I'm going to just share a little more about, maybe I'm going to just close the presentation and just share a little bit more about Strait Talk Okinawa itself. Strait Talk Tokyo/Okinawa is an initiative developed by the combination of Strait Talk alumni based in Japan and their colleagues who made a determination to use Japan as a platform for a four-party engagement, as we describe. As some of you may know, the cross-strait relations have become an acute security challenge to Tokyo, where public and policy debate about what Japan should do in the event of the military conflict across the Taiwan Strait is becoming urgent and real. The background of this, as you can perhaps suspect, is the deepening tension between China and the United States, and the real serious policy discussion about the possibility of the military attack across the Taiwan Strait, and the continuous tension between China and Japan with respect to the East China Territorial Sea, among other contexts. The decision we took to hold the next dialogue in Okinawa is informed by our desire to pay a closer attention to the human experiences in Okinawa, the place where U.S. military cooperation as well as the militarization of the territory has been an issue with many adverse consequences, but also a place that has known historically as a basis for human to human, community to community connections between people of Okinawa on the one hand and people in Japan, Taiwan, and mainland China. So we share determination to humanize this dialogue, refocus our attention away from an exclusive attention to a high-level security-focused diplomatic discussion to the human experiences, which are, after all, the most important part of any conflict, especially the cross-strait relations. So with this as a background, I want to introduce to you two recent alumni of Strait Talk. One is Henu, and the second colleague who talked is Lam Tram. Both are established professionals working in Washington, D.C., and also graduate students, and they both participated in the inaugural 2024 Strait Talk Tokyo Symposium as U.S. delegates. And they have much more to say about what wonderful work they do. But first, I just hand over to who's going to speak first? Hinu, are you going to go first? All right. So why don't you take over?
Sure. Great. Hello, everyone. First off, thank you for inviting me as a panelist. It's good to be able to speak, and this gives me a chance to reflect again and remind myself of the takeaways from our memorable event in winter of 2024. But before I get into the specifics of my experience there, I'll start off with a brief introduction of myself. So, as Tats mentioned, my name is Hyunwoo Roh. I'm currently a policy analyst at Sumitomo Corporation of Americas, which is a Japanese trading house in here in Washington, D.C. And I mainly analyze U.S. trade, defense, energy, and foreign policies and map out impact on business units. So it's a little intersection between public and private sector. Um, and as Tats also mentioned, I actually just graduated from Johns Hopkins SAIS with a master's in international relations, where I focused on international economics and specifically regionally in East Asia. So that's a quick little introduction about myself. Um, I won't go into too much depth, but I think it would be important for me to explain what my reason and rationale was into joining this Straight Talk. And as you can tell, maybe from my name, I'm Korean, so maybe the ties aren't super clear. So I'd say, first of all, from an academic point of view, the Taiwan Strait crisis, this whole cross-strait relations was very important to me through my studies. I've been studying international relations since undergrad, with a focus on the Indo-Pacific. And as someone who's also Korean and and also lived in Japan, this Indo-Pacific area has been a big interest of me to me, and this cross-strait relations has significant impacts through that. So, from an academic point of view, who studied this from college all the way through grad school, this was a very interesting topic. And as someone who hasn't really had the experiences of hearing from the direct I guess, stakeholders from mainland China, from Taiwan. I thought this was going to be a great experience for that. So that was one of the big reasons I wanted to explore uh, this element of the cross-strait relations. Another reason, actually, specifically for this past event that surprised me was the involvement of Japan, as Tats kind of kindly introduced to us. Obviously, Japan is a very important stakeholder in this issue. But for me, I had a lot of ties there. I also work for a Japanese company, so I thought that was going to have some significant implications. And yeah, I just think with those elements kind of combining into one, I ended up joining. And I can say with 150% confidence that I took out way more than I expected. And I expected a lot and I took out even more. Um, I liked the idea of producing something. Um, it's not just one of those conferences where we kind of talk. We hear from experienced professionals and and the discussion. It's actually more of a you know it's participant-led initiative, and the fact that we're coming together for parties that have some similar but a lot of different opinions and I guess perspectives coming together into one and producing one consensus proposal. It sounds very aloof and maybe unachievable, but the fact that we were able to do that was extremely valuable. And for me, it was this process of kind of challenging, agreeing, and compromising. That was extremely worthy. And another big lesson that I was able to kind of take away from this straight talk was the idea of tackling such a large scale, you know, issue that has global implications, breaking that down into a formal structure that we use that Tat introduced, and then actually putting together a product. So it's actually yes, it may be grassroots, but the idea of applying theory and structure to such a large scale issue um, allowed my brain to get a lot more organized, and I've been applying that in other contexts as well. Even at work, because Sumitomo does a lot of defense business between US and Japan. Um, this Taiwan Strait has very significant, and I've been doing a lot of scenario analysis on drawing out impacts. So both from a structure point of view, but also in terms of content point of view, I've been able to take away so much. So I'll stop there. Maybe I'll pass it over to Lam, and I'll, be happy to explore more and share more about my experiences later.
Awesome. Thank you, Hyunwoo. Hello, everyone. My name is Lam. Thank you for the Straight Talk team for having me here today, and thank you for everyone for tuning in. I am currently a second year graduate student at Georgetown. I am studying science and tech policy here. But before graduate school, I worked for a few years on US Asia policy the think tank in Washington, D.C. I was at CSIS, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, where a lot of my work sort of focused on the cross-strait question, but with a defense and contingency planning angle. So coming to Straight Talk, I was really excited to learn more about the perspective of emerging leaders from the region. Because I think most of the discussion, I was already in a lot of track 1.5 or track 2.0 dialogue, but with senior American, Japanese, and Australian scholars. And I feel like a lot of those dialogue, it felt like an echo chamber to me. A lot of the talking points was really the same, and it like a lot of like nuances that I feel like a lot of my question was not really fully answered. So coming to Straight Talk with like an open mind, I sort of like want to engage in actual dialogue, talking to people with lived experience in the region instead of scholars or policymakers who was looking at the question from like a distance, a very safe distance in DC. So I think that it was a very informative experience. Like Hangul was saying, it was really about the process of having really difficult conversations with people where we know that we have a lot of differences. But I think what I appreciate a lot was the willingness and then the facilitator ability for people to have really constructive discussion with each other. And then would love to go more into detail about some of those later in the Q&A session. But yeah.